I'm not seeing that. Hello and welcome to Farm Journal Live. I'm editor Clinton Griffiths from our Farm Journal newsroom here in northern Indiana as we bring you the latest on what's happening around the country. Today, the big news just happening out of Washington. Let's get straight to the details there. The new coronavirus food assistance program details rolling out of Washington today. The president holding a press conference just about an hour ago where they discussed the plan, took some questions from the press. USDA will provide about $16 billion to agricultural producers with commodities that have suffered a 5% or greater price decline or that have losses due to market supply chain disruptions due to COVID-19 and face additional significant marketing costs. Here's the president.
But as you know, the virus has forced many of our nation's restaurants to temporarily close, and this has taken a major toll on our farmers and growers, some of whom were dealing directly with restaurants. I didn't realize that until yesterday. We were with the big restaurants, and they sometimes will deal directly with your farmer. No middlemen, no nothing, just directly. And it's a big business. For this reason, my administration is launching a sweeping new initiative, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Through this effort, we are providing $19 billion to support our nation's agricultural producers, maintain the health of our critical food supply chains, and provide food assistance to American families.
Now you heard the president there talking about 19. I mentioned 16. The $16 billion is a direct payment. There's an additional $3 billion. Let's bring in Jim Wiesmeyer, our Washington correspondent there. Jim, this rolling out with quite a few details there, a lot to weed through for the ag industry.
Yes, you know, the biggest item I got out of it, and we were expecting this from all the criticism that the leaked details received, is they basically doubled the payment limitation from the initial plan. So now there's a $250,000 per person or entity, and there's no longer a per commodity limit. And then there are now corporate entity limits now. I don't want to get too detailed and wonky on you, but that's a good development. The other thing that caught my eye is when they said, you know, what's not in this agreement.
Right.
Commodities that didn't suffer a 5% or greater price decline from their designated periods, mid-2020 to mid-April this year, are not eligible for the CFAP payments. And what does this include? They listed sheep more than 2 years old, eggs layers, soft red winter wheat, hard red winter wheat, white wheat, rice, flax, rye, peanuts, feed barley, extra long staple cotton, alfalfa, forage crops, hemp, and tobacco. I don't think they're going to be very happy on this one.
Right. One of the things that they did provide are some of the payment rates and the way that those calculations will be made. Let's look at the non-specialty crops and wool. We can see those rates. I'm not going to read all of them there whenever we get them up on the screen, but you can see things like corn. There's a 32 cents under the CARES Act payment rate and then a 35 cents under the CCC payment rate. Those are two different rates. Talk a little bit about that, Jim.
Yeah, there are two different rates calculated by time frames, but there'll be one payment. So it'll be a blended payment. They did that in the release because of the funds are coming from two different places. One, the CARES Act, and second one, the CCC Charter Act. And another thing, Clinton, is that initial payment will be 80% of the estimated payment to make sure that they don't spend too much, with the 20% coming, later. Now, additional crops and livestock can always be added later, but they're going to have to prove, some information. Sign up, begins May the 26th, so it's a pretty short turnaround on that. And then, payments won't take very long after the sign up.
One of the things here, I know there's some math involved in this, Jim. Producers will be paid based on inventory subject to price risk is held as of January 15th, 2020. Payment will be made based 50% of a producer's 2019 total production or the 2019 inventory as of January 15th, whichever is smaller, multiplied by the commodities applicable payment rates. We also have the livestock payment rates here. We'll just pop those up, let folks take a look at those. They're broken out by different classes of cattle. You've also got hogs there and pigs. lambs, yearlings, wool. So quite a bit to go through. Obviously, people are going to have to do some math on this thing and try to get all of the details that they can. What's left to figure out here, Jim, other than trying to do the math for our own farms and see what this is going to mean for our operations?
Well, there will be very likely be additional payments later on when Democrats and Republicans ever put out an agreement, based on the next, COVID-19 aid package. I mean, they won't say that at USDA, but I will. Second is that Sonny Perdue mentioned, and we reported on this a couple of weeks ago, that through the NRCS, they will help livestock producers, not with indemnity payments, but help them dispose or depopulate. And they're going to provide more details on that. But the indemnity payment is not in there. So that's going to have to come, and I think it will, high odds, in the next assistance package.
Do you think, like on the dairy side of things, this is going to do enough for those folks that ended up having to dump milk and kind of help keep the dairy industry solvent here?
Well, I would think, looking at the numbers, I haven't had time to feed all the calls that are coming my way from the different, commodity groups. But the numbers that I saw in those tables that you showed looks pretty good for dairy. So it'll be curious to see their response. Plus, they've had a recent dramatic run up in price here as a result of these purchases and other aspects of the dairy industry. So again, at first blush, I think dairy producers should be happy.
Yeah, we know that they're buying quite a bit of milk and cheese and different things that are going in to disperse to different food banks and different places around the country. Jim, as we look through the rest of this thing, during listening to the president talk, he did mention beef and cattle, the cattle industry, and looking at cattle imports. What was your take on that comment?
Dumbfounded, because he said, he turned to Sonny Perdue, USDA secretary, and said, Sonny, we ought to consider about stopping that cattle from coming in to this country. And then how the president thinks and talks out loud. And then he said, well, maybe not with our good allies. So that's opened up a can of worms. If there was a lead in that press briefing that Trump gave, that was it, because that was really the new news. We knew payments were coming out. We knew that the payment limitations were going to be dramatically increased, and they were. But it was his cattle mention that I think will be one of the lead items coming out of that press event, regretfully, I would say.
Quite a bit of different conversation when you're talking cattle versus the amount of beef that comes in. Both of those, the conversation just changes there. So, we've been talking country of origin labeling and all of these other conversations for a long time, Jim. It just seems like this is one of those conversations that we may be having again based on the comments today.
Yeah, you wonder how it took USDA over a month to announce this, because recall they announced the program April the 17th. So I'm not quite sure why it took so long. Some people are telling me with the wholesale retirements in the U.S. government, some staffers may not have been up to speed at the Office of Management and Budget. I'm trying to confirm that, but that I don't know whether that's passing the buck or not. But at least we have the announcement now. Sign up relatively soon, May the 26th, and USDA knows how to send out checks, so that'll come quicker than what many people thought going into this announcement.
One last question, Jim. I know the House passed their $3 trillion HEROES Act, probably dead on arrival in the Senate, but the Senate probably will be doing something of their own. Do we expect more in the agricultural realm from that side of the chamber?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, a number of Republicans came out and said, the House ag package in their over $3 trillion bill, they liked a number of features in there. It did not include, however, an increase in the Commodity Credit Corporation Act, Charter Act borrowing authority. So I think that will be a change in the Senate approach. In return, I think the Democrats are going to have to get a significant increase in food stamp, funding, and maybe some other language on that. But again, you heard President Trump. He has been consistent in getting aid out to the farmers and ranchers. And with this election coming up and the need for it, I mean, no farmer is going to be made whole out of any of this. So it's not a bailout like some city papers say, but additional aid will be coming out. And with this payment cap now, that'll be good news for the efficient, larger producers, because absent that change, it would not have been the force that this change accounts for. A lot more money will come to a lot more producers now.
All right. Well, appreciate the insights as always, Jim. Thanks for jumping on here right after we get this information out. I know it's just a flurry of paperwork and numbers and math and everything that has to happen to try to get that information dispersed into all the groups, and we appreciate you taking time to share that with us today. As you mentioned, we've got just a few days. You can just start applying for these aid payments. USDA Secretary Perdue saying that farmers can start right after Memorial Day on May 26th. He expects those checks to start showing up 7 to 10 days later. You can head over to the website at farmers.gov/CFAP for more information. And there has been quite a bit of rain, although in some parts of the country, there haven't been any rain at all. But we know folks are still out there giving it their best shot and continuing to farm on through the coronavirus pandemic. We want to share a few of those great shots that we've been receiving with you and a tribute to those pictures and that nostalgia to keep the work going.
It started as social distancing, self-isolation, and caring for loved ones. A time for agriculture to be proud, to be essential. Now, it's changing. While states start to reopen and jobs resume, out here, the clouds are building. The path is uncertain. It's not the first time, it won't be the last. But we'll farm on. This soil is soaked in generations of sweat, of reinvention, of grit. Farm on is a calling. It's a mantra, a mindset. When the horizon dims and things turn dark, we'll find the light. We may be doing this for you, but we're also doing it for them. 2020, now's the time to farm on.
So many great pictures and videos that have been shared. Thank you so much for doing that. We've asked, you delivered. You can send those, put them up on social media with a hashtag FarmOn, or you can text them to 31313. You text FarmOn, and then you send the picture or the video and share it that way. Of course, with all of this information coming out, we're going to be doing our best to get it out to you. Our continuing coverage happening over at agweb.com. Of course, we'll be on Ag Day television tomorrow as well. But you can just keep up with all of the latest news and information that's happening. agweb.com/coronavirus or agweb.com for the very latest. Thanks so much for spending a little bit of time with us this afternoon. We appreciate it. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe.